Hello everyone, my name is Cody Shupp, and for our third presentation I will be doing it on faces of the automotive industry, my interviews with 4 people in the automotive industry. So this is my overview. First we're going to have Donald Shupp, my grandfather. He's 94 years old. Quick thing about him, he used to work for Studebaker, and then he worked on planes in the Air Force. Next we will talk to Mike Reddick. He's the car line planning manager at Subaru America. Then we'll talk to Toshihiro Matsuda and Ryo Miyauchi. They are both engine design engineers for Subaru America. And then finally we will talk to Alan Bethke, the VP of Marketing at Subaru America. So first up we got Donald Shupp. He is my grandfather, like I said previously. A couple things on him. He lived in the city when he was younger, and he was telling me that back in the day, you really didn't see a lot of cars in the city. It would mainly be trolleys because personal cars weren't very common. He bought his first car that he actually bought 2 of them. They were 1927 Accords from a junkyard, and was actually able to take them apart and make them into one good running car. After serving in Vietnam, he worked for Studebaker for a few years before going to work in the Air Force on planes. Before he went to work for Studebaker, he actually spent his GI Bill, $100, on tools, which back then was a lot more than it is now. So that just kind of shows you how much or how long ago this was. So a few things I took from my interview with Donald. When working at Studebaker, he was one of only 4 people in the shop, including shop foreman, so it was a pretty small shop. The shop foreman actually performed all the diagnostic work and then sent it to his mechanics to perform the repairs, which is pretty uncommon now. When you look at it, back then it was completely different. Typically for these vehicles back in the day, they would get to about 40,000 miles and they would need a complete overhaul. So that's very uncommon to what it is now. And the main difference I think here, a cultural change here, is what R&R means. We think of it now as remove and replace. Back then it meant remove and repair. So there's a big difference between the two. Now also, cars in the past, like I was saying before about the 40,000 miles to be completely reserviced, you wouldn't even think to get them to about 100,000 miles. It just was not a thing. But now cars are built more for longevity. Moving on from him is Mr. Mike Reddick. A couple things about Mike. He started in sales at a dealership. He came to Subaru America and was part of the management training program where he moved around the country in different facets of the company. Then he came back to New Jersey, and now he is a car line production manager at Subaru America for product management. So main impacts I got from Mike on the impacts of culture were a few things, and related mainly obviously to his job. One was the difference between the colors of the vehicles and the interior design of the vehicles. They need to make sure that a trend that is happening now will be viable for 4 years in the future, because they're developing cars now for potentially 4 to 5 years into the future. So they got to really focus on that. Besides that, COVID, like everything else, had a big factor in the design of these new cars. So because everyone was so cooped up, they want to go outdoors. They somehow figured this out, or just by luck of the draw, that they released this year, they released a Wilderness Edition, as you see right here, which is a mainly outdoor car, so really catered to what people want right now. But besides that, because of COVID as well, people are also looking into antimicrobial surfaces and materials, so they're actually starting to look more into that and using things such as aluminum in the cars. Next, we will go to Matsuda-san and Miyauchi-san. They are, like I said before, they are both Japanese engineers. A few things on them. They've been here for about 4 years. It's pretty typical for the stint for these guys. Then they go back to Japan. But they work for NASI, which is North American Subaru Incorporated, partners with Subaru America. And with them, I'll focus mainly on the cultural differences between working in Japan and working in America. So here's a few things that I learned from them that I found pretty interesting. You must drive a Subaru to work if you work at Subaru. People think that if you're not driving a Subaru, what's wrong with them? You have to wear uniforms every day, which is a little strange. You know, we dress up here but they actually have to wear uniforms. Open concept is big in Japan. It's starting to get bigger here, but it's definitely bigger in Japan. And then culturally in Japan, there's been a big shift from compact cars to more passenger-friendly cars like minivans. They even so, they actually took the taxes and lowered them on these economical cars, and it's actually made them extremely popular. So finally, Mr. Alan Bethke, a couple things on him. He started in marketing his career at Maytag, selling appliances. And then with his passion for vehicles, he moved to Suzuki, where he didn't stay very long until moving to Subaru, but he still had to prove himself, even though he had that much experience. And just like Mike Reddick, he worked in multiple regions in the country to learn the different facets and regions, like I said, of marketing for the company itself. So one thing I want to focus on my interview with Alan is this Share the Love event. He was integral in this part. So like I said, you can't market, or he can't market these cars to the Northeast the same as he can to Florida. So he really had to figure that out, and Subaru had to figure it out. They struggled a lot in the early 2000s with their identity because they just kind of followed along the path of every other car company. In 2008, they actually created the Share the Love event. The reason why they did this was they actually talked to the customers and they focused on the thing that meant important to them, and it was charity. So the Share the Love event was so big that they created 2 to 3 additional things. They created Subaru Love Pets, Subaru Loves the Environment, and local communities as well. Again, it focused on people or the customers that what they really care about: pets, the environment, which is really big right now and it should be, and their local communities. So the spark from this whole Subaru Share the Love event was because of the customer, and Subaru's dived even deeper into that now. And even in the past 10 years, they focused on millennials that have grown up, and that's why they created this, because they love their pets, they love the environment, and they love their local communities. They want to outreach to anything and everything they can. So in summary, the main takeaways I had from these interviews, first with Donald, was the big difference between repair and remove and replace. With Mike Reddick, number 2, that was the side effects of COVID, what they're looking into the new cars to change to really conform to what's happened with COVID. With Matsuda-san and Miyauchi-san, it was the cultural differences, or the geographical cultural differences between working in Japan and working in the US. And then with Alan Bethke, it was really the changes in the times and the focus on the customers and what they care about and marketing towards that. So that's my presentation. Thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.